The colony of Veyrin 4 was quiet that day, at least in the beginning. The sky above the alien settlement was tinted green from the planet's atmosphere. The buildings were made of tall, curved stone and glowing crystals that hummed with faint energy. For the Veyrin people, this was a normal day. Children played near the edge of the habitat dome, and workers moved between the farms and the trade halls. But then, everything changed. A loud cracking sound shook the air. One of the habitat domes where the children studied and played collapsed. The ground trembled, glass-like shards fell, and dust rose like a storm. Screams echoed through the settlement. Parents rushed forward, but the dome had already sealed itself with broken beams and collapsed walls. Inside, several children had been playing. Most were quickly pulled out by the colony guards, but one child remained trapped deep within. Her name was Sarah, a young Veyrin girl with silver-blue skin and bright golden eyes. She was the daughter of Lorana, one of the colony's respected mothers. The mother cried out, pressing against the barrier of broken crystal, but she could not reach her child. The debris was unstable, shifting dangerously whenever someone tried to move it. To make things worse, the collapsed dome had released toxic fumes. For the Veyrin, whose lungs were delicate, breathing that air meant certain death. The guards hesitated. The engineers measured the ruins and shook their heads. The child was alive, they could hear her faint cries, but going inside was almost impossible. The Veyrin people were not strong enough to push the heavy beams. Their bodies were light and agile, but fragile like glass. One wrong move and they would be crushed or poisoned. And then a stranger stepped forward. He was human. His name was Daniel Hayes, an explorer from Earth who had arrived on Veyrin 4 only a few weeks earlier. He had been studying their culture, trading supplies, and offering to help with farming. To the Veyrin, he was strange, tall, muscular, and too rough in movement compared to their graceful ways. Some admired him, others distrusted him, but most simply ignored him. Now as panic spread through the colony, Daniel pushed through the crowd. His eyes narrowed as he saw the child's small hand reaching out through a crack in the rubble. "Why isn't anyone going in?" he asked loudly. The chief engineer looked at him with disbelief. "It is too dangerous. The air is poison. The structure will fall again. No one can survive inside." Daniel clenched his fists. "She's a child. You can't just leave her." The alien mother, Lorana, stepped forward, her voice breaking. "Please, my daughter, save her." "I cannot. None of us can." Her words collapsed into sobs. Without waiting for permission, Daniel pulled a cloth from his pack and wrapped it around his face. He tightened the straps on his jacket and looked at the jagged hole. "I'll get her out," he said simply. The Veyrin stared in shock. "You will die," one of the guards warned. Daniel shook his head. "Not if I move fast." Before anyone could stop him, he climbed into the ruins. The air inside burned his lungs instantly. He coughed, feeling the stench of chemicals mix with dust. The space was dark, filled with broken beams that glowed faintly with energy. Shards of crystal cut at his hands as he moved them aside. The heat from the collapse pressed against his skin. Daniel pressed his body low and crawled forward. He could hear Sarah's voice, weak, trembling, calling for her mother. That sound pushed him onward. He ignored the sting of the dust in his eyes, ignored the ache in his chest as he breathed the toxic air. His boots crunched on sharp fragments, slicing into the leather. "Hold on, kid," he shouted. His voice echoed strangely against the crystal walls. "I'm coming!" Sarah whimpered in response, but it gave him a direction. The debris shifted suddenly. A beam cracked and fell, striking Daniel's shoulder. Pain shot through his body, but he shoved it aside and kept moving. Blood ran down his arm where the sharp edge had cut him. He didn't care. Finally, he saw her. The child was pinned beneath a shard of crystal, her small body trembling. Her eyes widened when she saw him. You're the off-worlder," she whispered weakly. Daniel gave her a quick grin despite the blood dripping from his forehead. "That's me. Let's get you out of here." He tried lifting the shard. It was heavy, too heavy even for him. He growled and pushed harder. His muscles burned. His hands tore open on the sharp edges, but the shard finally shifted enough for him to pull Sarah free. She gasped, clutching his jacket. "You're bleeding," she said softly. Daniel laughed, though his chest hurt. "Doesn't matter. Can you walk?" She shook her head, tears running down her cheeks. "My leg, it hurts too much." Without hesitation, Daniel scooped her into his arms. She was light, fragile like glass, but he held her carefully, shielding her body against his chest, With one arm, he pushed debris aside, carving a path back toward the faint glow of daylight. The air grew thicker. Every breath was fire in his lungs. His vision blurred. He stumbled, nearly falling, but forced his legs to keep moving. Sarah's tiny hands clung to his shirt. "Don't let go," he whispered. "I won't," she promised. Another beam crashed down behind them, sending shards flying. One sliced across Daniel's back, tearing his jacket. He hissed in pain but kept going. At last he saw the gap where he had entered. A crowd of glowing eyes stared from outside, waiting, hoping. Daniel staggered forward, carrying Sarah in his arms. The moment he reached the opening, hands reached in to pull the child. He passed her out to the waiting mother, who cried with relief as she held her daughter tight. But Daniel himself collapsed to the ground, coughing blood into his cloth mask. His arms were cut, his back bleeding, his breathing ragged. Still, he managed a tired smile as he looked at Sarah, safe in her mother's arms. "She's fine now," he whispered. The aliens gathered around, silent. They had never seen such a thing. To them, risking one's life for another, especially someone not of your own kind, was beyond reason. Lyrana looked at Daniel with tears streaming down her silver cheeks. She pressed her forehead against her daughter's, then turned to the human. "You bled for her," she whispered. Daniel shook his head weakly. "She's just a kid. That's enough reason." The Varen colony was never silent. Their homes always hummed with the low vibration of crystal walls, and their streets were filled with soft chatter, music, and the glow of lights. But after the collapse, silence ruled. The people whispered instead of speaking, and their eyes kept returning to the human lying on the stone floor, his body covered with blood and dust. Daniel Hayes was alive, but only barely. His chest rose and fell with heavy effort. Each breath sounded rough, like broken glass grinding inside him. His jacket was torn open and cuts lined his arms, shoulders, and back. The air outside the dome was safe for him now, but the poison had already burned its way into his lungs. Sarah, the child he saved, sat on the ground beside him, clutching his hand with both of her small ones. Her golden eyes overflowed with tears. She would not let go. She trembled, but she held him tightly, whispering over and over, "Don't die, don't die, don't die." Her mother, Lyrana, knelt close too. She stroked her daughter's hair, trying to calm her, though her own body shook. Never in her life had she seen anyone, Varen or otherwise, risk so much for another. Her people were cautious by nature. They believed survival of the group was more important than sacrifice of one. And yet this human had broken all their rules. "Bring the healers," she cried suddenly. "Bring them now." Two Varen healers hurried forward, their robes trailing along the glowing street. They carried cases of tools, crystal devices that glimmered faintly, bowls of healing liquid and soft cloths. They leaned over Daniel, scanning his wounds with delicate fingers. One of them spoke quickly. "He is bleeding too much. His blood, it is not like ours. We do not know how to close his wounds safely. He breathes with great struggle," the other said. "His lungs are burned by the toxins. He should not have survived even this long." Lyrana's hands shook. "Then save him, please." The healers looked at each other, uncertain. "Our medicines are not made for his kind. His body is strange, dense, too hot. If we use our crystals, it may harm him instead of heal." Daniel opened his eyes a little. They were tired but calm. "Don't worry about me," he whispered. "Just make sure she's okay." His gaze flicked toward Sarah. The child tightened her grip on his hand. "I'm fine because of you." "Don't say that. You have to live." Her small voice cracked the silence. Dozens of Varen around them lowered their heads, ashamed that they had done nothing while the human had risked everything. The healers tried anyway. They pressed glowing crystals against Daniel's wounds, watching his skin respond strangely. Where a Varen's flesh would close, his only slowed its bleeding. They wrapped his arms in soft bandages made of woven plant fibers. They poured cooling water on his burns. Still, his breathing stayed heavy. At last, the chief healer sighed. "We can slow the damage, but we cannot fix him fully. He needs his own kind's medicine." The words spread through the crowd like a chill. There was no human doctor on Varen 4. Daniel was the only one of his species here. That meant he might not survive. Lyrana bowed her head, her heart heavy. She wanted to say something, thank him, promise him safety, but no words felt enough. Instead, she reached out and brushed a lock of dust from his forehead. The gesture was intimate, something her people rarely did for anyone outside family. You should not have done this, she whispered. And yet you did. For my child. Daniel gave a faint smile. Worth it, he murmured. Then his eyes closed and he slipped into unconsciousness. The next hours were chaos. The collapsed dome was sealed by engineers who began rebuilding. The colony guards kept people away, but no one forgot what they had seen. Everywhere in the settlement, whispers grew louder. Why would a human do that? He nearly killed himself for a child not his own. They are reckless, dangerous. No, they are brave, perhaps braver than we will ever be. Children who had seen the rescue retold the story to each other, their eyes wide with wonder. Workers in the fields paused to discuss it. Traders in the markets argued whether it was madness or greatness. The event spread like fire across the colony. Sarah refused to leave Daniel's side. Even after healers carried him to a small crystal chamber to rest, she stayed near him, curled up by his bed. Whenever someone tried to move her, she hissed like a wild creature and clung tighter. Her mother finally gave up and sat beside her, keeping watch. He will live? Sarah asked in a trembling voice. The healer hesitated. If his body is strong enough, yes, but we cannot promise. The little girl pressed her forehead against Daniel's hand. Then I will stay. He saved me. I will save him by not letting him be alone. Night fell. The green sky darkened to black and the stars appeared above the settlement dome. The Verin slept lightly, but Lirana could not. She sat awake, watching the human. Her thoughts were tangled like broken threads. Why had he done this? What kind of being ran into poison and falling stone for someone else's child? The Verin would not. Their instincts said, protect your own blood, protect your own life above all else. Sacrifice was waste. Sacrifice was foolish. And yet, without that foolishness, her daughter would be dead. She looked at Sarah asleep against Daniel's side. Her small fingers still clutched his hand even in dreams. The sight struck Lirana's heart deeply. This bond had formed in one day, sealed with blood, a bond stronger than many of her people ever understood. Lirana whispered into the quiet room, words not meant for anyone but herself. Perhaps he is not a stranger anymore. The next morning, Daniel stirred. His eyes fluttered open and he saw Sarah still holding his hand. He gave a weak chuckle. You're still here, huh? He said softly. The child smiled through tears. Of course. I'm not letting go. Lirana leaned closer. You are a fool, she said, though her voice trembled with gratitude. But you are a fool who gave my daughter back to me. And for that, I cannot repay you. Daniel coughed, his chest rattling, but his eyes shone with quiet strength. Didn't do it for payment. She's a kid. That's enough reason. The word spread again. Some Verin standing at the doorway heard them and their hearts stirred. A child is enough reason. Such a simple idea, yet so powerful. From that day forward, Daniel was no longer just the strange human explorer. He became something else in the eyes of many. To some, he was dangerous because of his unpredictable heart. But to others, especially to one alien mother and her daughter, he was already family. The colony of Verin 4 was no longer at peace. Not because of war or famine, but because of a single act. A human had bled for an alien child. What Daniel Hayes did inside the collapsed dome spread through every home, every street, and every council chamber. It was retold again and again until even those who had not seen it felt as if they had stood there watching. But with the story came arguments. Some Verin said, he is dangerous. A being who throws away his own life so easily cannot be trusted. Today he risked himself for a child, tomorrow who knows what reckless thing he will do. Others said he is brave. We have lived too carefully, too afraid of loss. Perhaps there is wisdom in what he did. Perhaps sacrifice is not always foolish. The colony became divided. Daniel himself was not aware of the storm building outside his chamber. He was still recovering, lying on a soft bed of woven fibers. His breathing was harsh, his bandages stained, but his spirit remained unbroken. He often woke to find Sarah sitting beside him, her small golden eyes watching carefully, as if making sure he would not disappear. You don't have to guard me, kid, Daniel told her one morning, his voice rough. Yes, I do, she said firmly. You guarded me. Now it is my turn. Daniel laughed softly, though it hurt his chest. Fair enough. Lirana also visited every day. At first, she came to check on her daughter. But soon she found herself watching the human as well. She listened when he spoke. Simple words that carried strange strength. He joked about his pain, smiled through his coughing, and always asked how Sarah was before anything else. Lyrana had never seen such selflessness. One evening she said to him quietly, "You risked everything for a child not your own. Why my people do not understand this. Even I do not fully understand it." Daniel looked at her with tired but steady eyes. "On my world, kids are everyone's responsibility. Doesn't matter if they're mine or not. A child deserves a chance to grow up safe." Lyrana lowered her gaze. Strange words, but they make my heart feel warm. Meanwhile, the colony council gathered. They were the leaders, wise in trade, farming, and survival. They wore robes of crystal threads that shimmered under the green light. But now even their wisdom felt weak before this human problem. The head counselor, Varric, raised his hand. "This act has shaken our people. Some praise him, some fear him. We must decide. Do we allow the human to remain, or do we send him away before his presence divides us further?" Another counselor frowned. "He saved a child. Sending him away would look cruel. But keeping him may bring more chaos," Varric argued. "His ways are reckless. Already the young whisper that they wish to be brave like him." "They will forget our teachings, our caution." An elder spoke softly. "Perhaps it is time our teachings were challenged. We have grown too afraid of pain, too afraid of loss." The room filled with murmurs. Some agreed, others shook their heads. No decision was made that night. Outside the council chamber, ordinary people argued too. In the market, a trader told his neighbor, "If all humans are like him, they are unstable. Imagine if they decide to sacrifice us for their strange reasons." His neighbor replied, "Or imagine if they decide to stand beside us when danger comes. Would that not be a gift?" The debates continued. Children began to play games where one of them pretended to be Daniel, rushing into danger to save others. Parents scolded them, saying, "That is not our way." But the children only laughed and said, "It is the human's way." The cultural clash had begun. One afternoon, as Daniel rested, a group of colony guards entered his chamber. Their faces were stern, their crystal armor glowing faintly. Lyrana stood quickly, alarmed. "What do you want?" she demanded. The lead guard spoke firmly. "We are here to question the human. The council must know his intent." Daniel pushed himself up slowly, ignoring the pain. "My intent?" he asked. "Yes," the guard replied. "You risked your life recklessly. Our people do not understand why. Was it a trick? Was it to earn our trust?" "What are you hiding?" Daniel blinked in surprise, then let out a weak laugh. "You think I had some plan? I saw a kid in danger. That's it. No tricks, no games, just doing what had to be done." The guards exchanged uncertain looks. One muttered, "He sounds honest." But another said sharply, "Or clever. Perhaps he knows our emotions are weak against gratitude." Sarah jumped to her feet, standing between the guards and Daniel. Her small body trembled, but her voice was loud. "He is not lying. He saved me because he is kind. You should thank him, not accuse him." The guards fell silent. No one dared argue with a child who spoke with such fire. Finally, they bowed and left. Daniel looked at Sarah with a grin. "You're pretty scary when you want to be." She puffed her chest proudly. "I learned it from you." Still, the council could not ignore the growing division. They called a public gathering in the central square, where the tall crystal spire glowed like a beacon. Thousands of Varen gathered, their eyes shining in the green light. Daniel was brought forward, still weak but standing, with Lyrana and Sarah beside him. Counselor Varric spoke to the crowd. "This human risked his life for a child. Some see bravery, others see madness. We must decide what place, if any, he has among us." The crowd murmured loudly. Some shouted, "He is a hero." Others answered, "He is a danger." At that moment, Sarah stepped forward. Her small voice carried far because silence fell as soon as she began. "He is my hero," she said. "When I was trapped, when no one could reach me, he came. He bled so I could live. I am alive because of him. If you call him reckless, then call me his reason. If you call him dangerous, then remember he used his danger to save a child." Her words struck the hearts of many. Parents clutched their children tighter, imagining what they would feel if it had been their own son or daughter. Lyrana then spoke, her voice calm but strong. "I am a mother of this colony. I know our traditions, our ways. But I also know this. My daughter breathes today because of him. You ask what place he has among us? I say he has a place as family. For any who bleed for a child, even a child not their own, deserves no less." The crowd gasped, Family was sacred among the Veyran. To call someone family was the highest honor, a bond unbreakable. Daniel looked embarrassed. "I didn't do it for honor," he muttered. But the crowd only grew louder, some cheering, some still doubtful, but all unable to ignore the strength of the moment. That night, the debates did not end, but something had changed. The idea had been planted. Maybe family was not only blood, maybe courage had its own wisdom. Daniel lay back in his chamber, exhausted. Sarah curled up beside him again, refusing to move. Lorana sat on the other side, her eyes soft. "You have shaken us," she admitted quietly. "We may resist. We may argue. But we cannot unsee what you have done." Daniel smiled faintly. "Didn't mean to start a revolution. Just wanted to save a kid." Lorana touched his hand lightly. "Sometimes the smallest act is the spark that changes everything." The days after the great debate were uneasy. The colony of Veyran 4 did not settle into peace. Instead, the story of Daniel Hayes, the human who bled for a child, continued to divide hearts. Some Veyran spoke of him with admiration, calling him a savior. Others whispered with suspicion, saying his reckless nature would poison their traditions. And so the colony council called another meeting. This time it was not just to talk. This time they would decide the human's fate. The council hall stood in the center of the colony, its walls tall and glowing, shaped from living crystal. Inside, the 12 counselors sat in a wide circle, their robes glittering faintly. At the center of the room, under the shining spire, Daniel stood with his arms still bound in bandages. He looked worn, but his eyes were steady. Beside him were Lorana and her daughter Sarah, holding tightly to his hand. Counselor Varric, the stern head of the council, spoke first. His voice echoed like stone striking stone. "This human has caused a great stir in our people. His act of sacrifice has made some question our ways. Others say he is dangerous. We must decide now. Will he remain in our colony, or must he leave us before his presence tears us apart?" The room filled with soft murmurs. Some nodded in agreement. Others frowned deeply. Daniel did not speak yet. He simply listened, his jaw tight. He had not asked for this. He had not wanted to stand in the center of a political storm. All he had wanted was to save a child. Yet here he was, being judged for it. One counselor stood, her voice sharp. "We should not pretend. His action was reckless. If our people begin to copy him, many will die. Sacrifice is waste. That is our law, and our law has kept us alive for centuries." Another rose in opposition. "And yet his waste saved a child. Our law would have let her die. What is survival worth if it means abandoning our young when hope still exists?" The counselors argued back and forth. Their words rose higher, their voices clashing like storms. Some called Daniel a hero, others called him a threat. Finally, Varric raised his hand for silence. He turned his sharp gaze on Daniel. "Human," he said coldly, "you stand accused of disturbing our harmony. You claim no reward, yet your actions demand one. What do you say? Do you admit that your reckless sacrifice was a mistake?" Daniel's lips twitched in a faint, bitter smile. He stepped forward, his voice rough but clear. "I didn't do it for reward. I didn't do it to change your laws. I did it because a kid was trapped. I heard her cry. I couldn't ignore it. Maybe you call that reckless. Where I come from, we call that being human." Gasps spread through the chamber. Some frowned, others whispered, but no one could deny the power in his words. Sarah suddenly ran forward, standing in front of him with her small arms spread wide. "Don't send him away," she shouted, her golden eyes fierce. "If you send him away, then you send me too. Because I won't stay without him." The crowd outside the chamber gathered to listen, gasped in shock. A child defying the council was unheard of, yet her words struck deep. Varric's expression hardened. "Child, your heart is clouded. You do not understand the danger he brings." But before he could say more, Lorana stepped forward. Her steps were slow but certain, her silver blue face calm yet burning with determination. She had stayed silent long enough. Now it was her turn. She bowed her head briefly, then raised it to meet the council's eyes. Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled slightly at her sides. "I am Lorana, mother of Sarah. You all know me. You know I have always followed our ways, respected our laws. But today I must break them." The chamber grew still. Breaking tradition was no small thing. She continued, her voice louder. "Yes, the human is reckless. Yes, he nearly died. But tell me this. If it were your child trapped under the dome, would you not pray for someone to risk everything to save them? Would you not thank any hand, even a stranger's, that reached into the fire? Her eyes swept across the counselors. None could meet her gaze. My daughter lives because of him, she said firmly, and that means he is bound to me now. By our deepest law, by our oldest truth, any who bleed for a child are family, and family is never cast out. Her words thundered through the hall like a quake. The crowd outside roared with gasps and shouts. The counselors looked at one another, shaken. Daniel blinked in surprise. Lorana, you don't— She cut him off with a sharp glance. Be quiet, human. This is my choice. Then she turned back to the council. You want to send him away? Then you will send me and my daughter too, for I will not abandon family. The hall exploded with noise. Some cheered, some protested. But no one could deny the power of her declaration. Family was sacred among the Veyrin. To reject one's family was unthinkable. Varric slammed his hand against the table for silence. His face was tense, his voice heavy. This is dangerous. If we accept this human as family, we shatter our traditions. If we reject him, we risk tearing apart our unity. Either path brings change. An elder counselor rose, her voice soft but clear. Perhaps change is what we need. Perhaps the human is not a threat, but a teacher. We have hidden behind fear for too long. His blood has shown us another way. The arguments raged long into the night. But one thing was clear. The colony could no longer see Daniel as just a visitor. He was part of them now, whether they accepted it or not. When the meeting finally ended, Daniel was exhausted. He walked out of the chamber with Sarah holding one hand and Lorana on his other side. The crowd parted for them, whispering as they passed. Some looked at him with fear, others with awe. Outside, under the green-tinted night sky, Daniel let out a long breath. I didn't mean to cause all this, he muttered. Lorana looked at him firmly. You saved my child. You caused nothing but life. Do not forget that. Sarah smiled up at him, her small hand squeezing his tightly. You're family now. You can't escape it. Daniel laughed softly, shaking his head. Guess I'm stuck, huh? Lorana's gaze softened. Yes, she said. Stuck with us. The sun of Veyrin IV rose slowly over the glowing crystal forests, painting the skies with shades of green and blue. For the first time since Daniel Hayes had arrived, the colony felt different. It was no longer the quiet, closed society he had first stepped into. Now every corner of it buzzed with talk of him, the human who had bled for a child, the human who had been called family by one of their own. The council had not given a clear decision yet. Their debates continued in private, their voices muffled behind stone walls. But outside, among the people, the change was already alive. Daniel walked through the market square with Sarah skipping happily beside him. The young girl's laughter rang like music, her energy unshaken despite the chaos around her. Her small hand clutched his bandaged one, pulling him along as though she had forgotten he was still healing. Faster, Daniel, she chirped. I want to show you the sweet fruit stand. You haven't tried it yet, Daniel chuckled. Kid, I almost lost my arm saving you. Can't you give me one day to rest? Sarah stuck her tongue out. Heroes don't rest. He laughed again, though his smile carried a weight she couldn't see. Around them, the stares of the Veyrin followed. Some faces held warmth, some fear, others confusion. Daniel felt the weight of all those eyes. He wasn't just a visitor anymore. He was a symbol, and symbols carried both love and hate. That evening, Lorana found him sitting alone on the edge of the crystal cliffs. The glowing rivers below shimmered like veins of light across the land. She walked quietly and sat beside him. You are troubled, she said softly. Daniel sighed, staring at the horizon. Your people don't know what to do with me. Half of them want me gone. The other half wants me to stay, and I don't even know what I want. Lorana studied his face, the lines of exhaustion, the quiet strength in his eyes. It was all strange to her, yet somehow familiar. You want what any human wants, she said. A place to belong. Her words cut deeper than she expected. Daniel's lips pressed tight. He thought of Earth, of the war he had left behind, of the comrades who had fallen. He had never truly belonged anywhere after that. He had come to Veyrin IV as an outsider, but here, unexpectedly, he had found something that felt like home. Still, he shook his head. I didn't mean to force change on your people. I don't want to break your world. Lorana placed her hand gently on his bandaged arm. You didn't break us, Daniel. You showed us a mirror. Some of us do not like what we see. But truth cannot be unseen. The next day, the council summoned him again. This time, the entire colony gathered outside the chamber. It was to be the final decision. Inside, the counselors sat in their circle, their faces tense. Counselor Varric, as always, looked stern, his voice sharp as he began. Human, you have disturbed the balance of our people. We cannot deny it. Some see you as family. Others see you as danger. We have debated long, and now we will decide. The chamber fell silent. Daniel stood in the center once more, Lorana and Sarah behind him. His heart pounded, but his face showed calm. Varric lifted his staff. The choice is clear. We cannot turn back time. The human has bound himself to us through blood, through sacrifice, through family. To reject him now would tear us apart. And so, he paused, his voice heavy. The human Daniel Hayes will be accepted as one of us. He will live among us, bound to Lorana's family, protected by our law. His ways are not ours, but his courage will be honored. The chamber erupted with noise. Some cheered, others shouted in anger, but the decision was final. Outside, the news spread like fire. The colony was divided, but the tide was shifting. More and more voices called Daniel a symbol of hope. Children pointed to him with wide eyes, whispering stories of his bravery. Elders argued, but even they could not erase what he had done. Sarah clung to him, her golden eyes shining. You're really staying, Daniel. You're family forever now. He knelt down, smiling faintly. Looks like I am, kiddo. Lorana stood nearby, her expression calm but proud. For her, it was more than just a victory. It was the beginning of something new. A bridge between her people and humanity, born from sacrifice and love. But peace was not so easy. Days later, Daniel discovered that some Varen still plotted against him. Whispers filled the shadows, fears that he would lead others into reckless danger, fears that humans would come in greater numbers. One evening, as he returned to the house, a group of young Varen confronted him in the street. Their eyes burned with anger. You should not be here, one hissed. You will destroy us, Daniel stood his ground. I don't want to destroy anyone. I just want to live here in peace. Another stepped forward, brandishing a crystal blade. Then leave before your peace kills us all. The tension was sharp, but before violence could break out, Lorana appeared. Her voice was cold as steel. Enough. The youths froze under her gaze. You dare threaten one who is family? Do you spit on our deepest law? They lowered their eyes, shame burning their faces. Without another word, they fled into the night. Daniel exhaled slowly. That could have gone bad. Lorana's eyes softened. It will take time. Not all hearts change at once. Weeks passed. Slowly, Daniel became part of daily life. He helped in the markets, taught the children games from Earth, and learned the rhythms of Varen culture. Some still avoided him, but many grew curious, even friendly. One day he found Sira showing other children how to pretend rescue each other from fallen crystal blocks, mimicking his actions during the cave-in. Their laughter filled the air, their small voices shouting, "Be brave like the human." Daniel's heart swelled and ached at once. He had not wanted to be a hero, but he could not deny the warmth of seeing children inspired, learning courage instead of fear. That night, Lorana joined him on the cliff again. The stars burned brightly above, twin moons casting silver light over the land. You have changed us, she said quietly. Daniel shook his head. I didn't change anyone. You chose to change, I just happened to be there, she smiled faintly. Perhaps, but without you, nothing would have moved. You brought us a choice we had long avoided. There was silence between them, filled only by the soft wind. Then with calm certainty she said, You are family, Daniel. Not just by law, by heart. Daniel swallowed hard. For the first time in years, he felt something he had thought lost forever. A place, a bond, a home. He looked at her, then at Sarah sleeping nearby, curled under a blanket. Guess I'm not alone anymore, he whispered. Lorana's eyes glowed softly in the moonlight. No, Daniel, you are not alone. The story of Daniel Hayes spread far beyond Varen 4 in the years that followed. Traders carried whispers of the human who bled for a child, of the alien mother who held him as family, of a colony that embraced change. Other worlds would one day hear of it. Other species would wonder at the strange, dangerous, beautiful thing called humanity. But for Daniel, the truth was simpler. He had bled once for a child. And from that single act he had gained a daughter, a mother's bond, and a home among the stars.